Welcome back. President Obama made a sweeping speech at Berlin's Brandenburg Gate this morning. He stood in the shadow of other U.S. presidents who have spoken there before him. 50 years ago, President John F. Kennedy visited the famous gate, which is now a symbol of Berlin's reunification. And 26 years ago, President Ronald Reagan made a speech there in the middle of the Cold War, the Tear Down This Wall speech. The theme today was peace with justice.
Today, 60 years after they rose up against oppression, we remember the East German heroes of June 17th, when the wall finally came down. It was their dreams that were fulfilled, their strength and their passion. Their enduring example remind us that for all the power of militaries, for all the authority of governments, it is citizens who choose whether to be defined by a wall or whether to tear it down. And we cannot ignore those who are yearning not only for freedom, but also prosperity. And finally, let's remember that peace with justice depends on our ability to sustain both the security of our societies and the openness that defines them.
The president speaking behind a glass security wall there. That explains some of the images that you saw. The wide-ranging speech covered security, terrorism, and drone strikes. The president even called for a reduction of the world's nuclear stockpiles.
After a comprehensive review, I've determined that we can ensure the security of America and our allies and maintain a strong and credible strategic deterrent while reducing our deployed strategic nuclear weapons by up to 1/3. And I intend to seek negotiated cuts with Russia to move beyond Cold War nuclear postures.
By the way, Vladimir Putin has already said, not so fast on the reducing nuclear stockpiles. Pretty much the same reaction that the president has gotten to just about every international push that he's tried on this trip so far. My question is, what was this speech about? Was this a policy speech? Was this a I'm going to go down in history speaking at the same place that John Kennedy spoke speech? Was it just a waste of time?
I wouldn't call what the president does a waste of time, I hope. But I'll make it close. What really happens here is a president, especially in his second term, is trying to be a statesman, trying to be about history, do what they can. He's back in town now for only, I think, a few days, and he goes to Africa.
Goes to Africa.
So, I mean, he's doing what he can. You know, the timing on this, nobody can question because it was planned way in advance, but also gives him a chance, gives him a lot of distance, literally, between Washington and what's going on there with any kind of scandals and what's going on overseas because of the time difference and so forth. So, what did he accomplish today? He looked presidential. He looked statesman. I don't know that he's going to accomplish much, as you can hear from Russia, that they're going to bother lowering their arms count at this point.
No interest.
So what's that going to? Well, also, I have a question. What happens when he keeps on saying, let's do this, let's do that, and nothing happens? Does it become a weakened state overseas? I don't know.
Right. Look, unfortunately, I don't think it was that productive a trip. I like the idea of going to one of our closest trading partners and spending time in Western Europe, as every president has for a very long time in America. But there weren't a lot of ideas here. There wasn't one big idea. I mean, nuclear cuts, that's been something that every president has talked about also for a very long time. It has to happen. Everybody knows that. But why talk about that when we've got Syria going on, when we've got all of these things happening across the world that that really need attention from people in Europe, people in Asia that have the wealth, the resources, the military might to actually do something to change the world.
But obviously, Andrew, the comparison on this one is back to 2008 when we saw all those bodies there, some 200,000 people.
There are about 4,500 there today.
Right, a huge difference. But one thing that I think, you know, I agree with O'Brien, the president, a statesman on the world stage. The one thing that I do agree with that the president did do today is he says while nuclear arms are not so much the threat worldwide today is climate change. And I just think that's something that's real, that impacts the entire world.
And the Times was reporting just a few hours ago that he's going to roll out a major list of recommendations or actual, I think, presidential actions on environment finally, coming through on some of his promises.
Which is a domestic push that a lot of people on the left have been waiting for a long time. Yeah. Look, I like the president. I think I've made that fairly clear on
it's
on
not
this
news
show.
tonight. Yeah.
I like the president, but today, it felt like you knew that there was no bite to what he was saying, and I just wondered, what was he doing? It felt as though he was trying to get his portrait up in the portrait hall next to Kennedy and Reagan.
I have a theory, by the way, which is that speech changed. And it probably was going to be a little bit more specific, and he has not been able to, as we've been talking about, he's been not been able to make any headway, get any traction with foreign leaders on a lot of his agenda.
And don't forget, he was at G8 now for a number of days with leaders, going over a number of things. I mean, ironically, you're talking about Russia and what they said today. They had the fight over the Super Bowl ring the other day on the back and forth. Not that has something to do with nuclear arms, but I'm just saying you have some of these bad vibes going back and forth. You have the question about the eavesdropping when we had foreign leaders over here that came up while he was over there. So I would say that if you're looking at the trip and what he's accomplished overseas right now, what they set out to do and what they've been able to accomplish wasn't achieved.
And it's important to remember this was scheduled a long time ago.
Right. Dom, I'm curious for your take on this. If Congress isn't playing ball with the president and foreign leaders don't seem like they're playing ball with the president, how long are the next 3.5 years going to be?
Long. It's called term number 2. It's called you've got to reinvent yourself to make yourself relevant, whether you're the mayor of New York or the president of the United States. We're in for, I guess the next big time is what, 2000. Well, not 2016.
2014.
Midterm.
The midterms of 2014.
Next year.
The reality, if you look at any presidential history, they've got about 6 months, 12 months top into their first term. So right now, when they come back from any kind of break they've got, that's really going to be...
Otherwise, what happens is, what's starting to happen is the world decides your agenda instead of you deciding your agenda, and events start deciding what you spend your time on. And look, this is the time at the very least that he can be saying what he wants and what he expects out of our allies, and then actually making some deals with them. Look, Western Europe needs our help economically. That's all they're worried about right now. You know, what are we doing about that?
Well,
how is that going to get us what we want on the national stage, or the international stage?
And he's encouraging them to stop cutting their spending at the same time. We've got spending cuts back here in the United States. It's
right, because austerity works so well for Europe.
A difficult trip for the president. We are going to take a quick break here on RFL. When we come back, we're going to jump into some Empire State politics. MMA is DOA in the big NY. We'll spell that story out for you. Get it? See what I did there? Yeah?
You're good.
Yeah. It's a 3 count, and we're out. Right back after this.